let's get started. So today we got a special hacker hangout today. As you see, we have Matthias from Chainsecurity. So I'll let him introduce himself and tell you guys a little bit about Chainsecurity in a moment. But yeah, so as usual with these hacker hangouts, I know a lot of the activity happens in the event channel, so the floor is always yours. So if you have any questions, post them up here. And as usual, if you guys don't already follow us, you can follow us on our socials, on Twitter, Discord, Telegram, and also our newsletter. And I always repeat myself, probably the fastest way to get the most up to date in terms of bug bounties that are released are probably Discord, Telegram, and or Twitter. One of those three channels probably gets the most updates. Also, our newsletter is a pretty good one as well. If you're not always on socials and you just would rather just get email notifications, we kind of just space those out a little bit more. Okay, cool. So as we get started, Matthias, thanks for joining us here today. I know this is a very highly anticipated event, since you know this was kind of leaked that we were going to have a hacker hangout with you guys hopping on as one of our guests. So if you can, please take a few minutes to introduce both yourself as well as Chainsecurity.
Yeah, super happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. So I'm Matthias. I am the CTO of Chainsecurity. My background is IT security for a long time, coming from the electrical engineering side of things. And with Chainsecurity since 4 years. So we do smart contract audits. And you might have come across us in several of the, both old and more recent disclosures on bigger incidents or on new type of vulnerabilities. So we really try to both work on, let's say, hacker alpha in that sense that we research new type of vulnerabilities and do obviously a lot of work in the space to secure projects. Perhaps one of the biggest bug bounties out there is a project we continuously work with to secure, which is Maker, but several of the other large DeFi players are also customers of ours for quite some time. So we have been really blessed to be able to work with those challenging but also trailblazing projects. We aren't big, like we are about 20 people, mostly based out of Europe. We have our headquarters in Zurich. There's also a lot of people there, but also some people all over the place. So, I'll stop there. I'm really looking forward to the discussions today and to share and weigh in and obviously learn a lot from what's going on here regarding newest trends, ideas in the space of bug bounties, of course, hacks in general, but also research, also basically anything around making this space more secure in the right way. Thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro. I think, yeah, I mean, since you guys have been around, I mean, you do keep Makers, Secure Makers, one of the, as everybody knows here, one of the bigger projects. Has there been any other, I guess, larger hacks that, or, you know, bugs that you guys have disclosed? And if so, would love to see if you could, you know, run down in terms of some of your guys' processes at Chainsecurity in terms of identifying some of these bugs and how you guys go about moving forward with them.
Yeah, sure. So another more recent case, so Maker luckily so far was spared the experience of being hacked, the traditional sense. But we had a more recent, luckily also successful case with Compound. We discovered a vulnerability around so-called dual entry point tokens. So how this happens is sometimes you come across like either ERC20s in this case, which have weird behavior. And one of these weird behaviors is something called dual entry point, meaning there are two addresses on mainnet which do exhibit the same behavior, meaning you can use both to send your transaction to cause a transfer of tokens. So obviously, usually it's just one. And this is a known caveat which some tokens have and which we check for in audits. And when we reviewed an update of the C token smart contracts for Compound, we realized that that update would have been exposed to dual entry point tokens. But it turns out that not only the update, but also the existing version, which had been live for quite some time, obviously at that point was exposed. Some of you might know in Compound case, everything is a lot more complicated because of very strict on-chain governance requirements, which means it's also hard to patch things silently. So yeah, we found this issue in October. It has been fixed, also with the help of our good friends and of course also competitors from Open Zeppelin. Then in February or March, where they actually fixed it on True USD and not on Compound. So True USD today is not a dual entry point token anymore. Yeah, but there, how it works is, yeah, I mean, in this case, we found it as a byproduct of an ongoing audit we had with that client. And then we already have a relationship with the project, so it's very easy for us to disclose it to them, obviously, at this point. And then the biggest challenge is how to mitigate it, especially if you're looking in this case, it was 8-digit loss potential with, again, one transaction at any point in time, how to prevent that, how to monitor for it, how to put countermeasures in place. So that was then the thing which went on behind the curtains.
That's cool. I guess like in terms of processes, how do you guys kind of approach what you guys want to look at, or what smart contracts you guys want to look at, or how bugs are disclosed? Is it something that you guys move forward as a team, or is it essentially done individually as you guys come across them in the space?
It's heavily done as a team. We really work on, I mean, we do audits, right? So we don't randomly, to some degree, look around for code which might be vulnerable, but it's really most often through our ongoing engagement with clients. There we always work in pairs, multiple people working on an audit, at least two, so sometimes three. And if something critical is found, it's primarily the work, obviously, of the people who are the ones who found it, and then the company and us. So often myself and others are then really supporting on the communication side of things, so that the people are really excellent at finding bugs and the tech side of things can focus on that, and others can focus more on the communication and education, explaining it to all the other stakeholders out there. But yeah, it is for us, it's really a team effort. We try to emphasize the kind of work we do together in Chainsecurity over like individual people's efforts and like successes, of course, because I think one of the superpowers is to be able to have like really, really good other people you can talk through these attacks, because often it's like you have one idea, but you need to combine multiple ideas. You build on top of that, and you think around, try to think around corners, right? And then come up with novel ideas. And that's just so much harder if the only one you are talking to is kind of yourself in your head. Some, of course, are very good at it, but for most, being able to explain it to others who are also like on the same level, or often in my case, I would say all of these people are considerably smarter. This is always, of course, a blessing.
That is, that is. No, that's awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, it's always good to hear some of the processes and approaches that not even just like firms like you, like Chainsecurity, but also individuals have. I think gives a good idea to some of these guys in the community, that like there's no one set approach that's 100% correct. There's some firms that use software, some guys that just browse the code at their leisure, some guys that really go dive deep. So it's awesome to kind of hear some of the processes that Chainsecurity does, or essentially the approach that you guys take. So we could field a few questions from the community. I think the first one that I ran across is from Mohammed. So he's asking you, Matthias, in the case where you get a project that has already been audited from known firms, when you take on this project, I'm sure that you're all aware that the usual suspects and fuzz findings have been attended to. What is your approach to find the really complex bugs? Could you touch upon this if possible?
Yeah,
And
sure.
I,
This is
yeah,
an
go ahead.
Yeah, this is an excellent question. So thanks for asking that. And it is, we are actually often in that situation. Right now, I can speak about it because it's public. Banker launched their V3, and audits have been conducted by at least two really also good firms. I think Open Zeppelin and Satora, but might have also been Trail of Bits or so. I don't know. But and then we are currently auditing Banker. It is also at the same time out there with, I think, a pretty decent bug bounty. I'm not sure if it runs through Immunify, to be honest, but they um, they did launch before all the audits are done. And in this setting, I can already share that the code isn't error-free. Obviously, you know the rules, right? Things we already found and disclosed to them are kind of out of the game. But in this case, how would I say? So first off, we do know a fair deal about weird behavior which few people keep track of, including the best firms. Obviously, at this point, you won't find a bug in like, let's say, a trivial reentrancy. You won't find like overflow behavior. You won't usually, hopefully, find stuff where there are missing modifiers around access control. Still, if you know about some strange behavior, like dual entry points, um, about what other weird edge cases are there. Oracle manipulation always being top of the list for these DeFi protocols, of course. Then it's not necessarily something which has been covered, because perhaps to give you an idea, as bug bounty hunters, you have a unique advantage. You just need to have a very good understanding of a bug, of a type of vulnerability, and then can apply that know-how to many projects. You don't need necessarily to understand the details and all the things which a project tries to achieve as auditors, we spend a lot of time on making sure that functionality works as intended and that corner cases are caught in ways which are unique to that project, right? So the project somehow needs to achieve something. They have a goal, set of assumptions, and there are sometimes ways to break that, but it's very specific to that project. And this takes a lot of time to understand it and to reason about it and then try to come up with novel ways to break exactly what they just built. On the other hand, if you know about some weird cases which just happen to affect a few projects out there, then you can just wait for that to come around because while obviously we try to cover the ones we know, there are just always new ones appearing. So yeah, you don't need in that sense to understand a project and then go in auditing it. Traditionally, you can focus on the kind of bugs you're really good at in identifying and play that. And we do the same sometimes. You asked before in scenarios, how do we find these things? So basically by staring at code for quite a lot of time in projects we understand, we do realize sometimes there are new novel ways how no one else thought of it. And this then is something which often applies to others, those projects we audited in the past and projects we didn't audit, where we then actually work with other auditors and the projects together to gradually release this information. You can imagine if we would go out and immediately publish a blog post saying, well, TrueUSD has dual entry point behavior. Like some might know, some don't know. This can be exploited in settings like blah, 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 right? And then obviously suddenly a lot of projects are at risk because a lot of people will start to hunt for exploits, not only the white hats, but also the black hats. So we try to gradually roll out this information about new types of bugs to the people who are known to be firmly on the white hat side of things. And they then help projects to become secure. And then gradually we release more and more details until hopefully we are able to fully disclose a new type of bug because we made reasonably sure that that wouldn't lead to an immediate exploit for many projects. And we honestly focus on Ethereum mainnet. We try to cover a little bit in the side chains, but there's just so many and so many who copy code all over the place. So we mostly focus on the ones who originally wrote code.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I guess to also backtrack, add one of the so Ezra was asking, so for someone that has good programming experience and some hacking experience in Web 2 and a little bit in Web 3, do you have any, I guess, tips in your perspective for beginners in terms of getting started and kind of getting the ball rolling?
So of course. So we have that frequently, right? We also grow. And then obviously the usual shout out, right? So apply if you want to join forces with us. But the way we do it for also the beginners in our team is we go through the fundamentals of like what Ethereum is, depending on where you start from, what EVM is like, and so on. You anyway need to have a very fundamental understanding of how computers work, let's say it this way, and not only from an end user perspective, but really the internals, like what compilers do, what you need to be good at coding, stuff like that. So this is a given. But then if you have that, understand what's special about the Ethereum execution environment, so to speak, so EVM. But then we really look into capture the flags. So this is pretty close to what we do in audits anyway. And there you know that something is there, right? Which you never know in audits. So capture the flags, it's just about figuring out where the bug is. You don't need to wonder if there is one. And we also do have something which proved incredibly beneficial for us internally and for the people learning, which is at the end of the journey, the new joiners will create their own small capture the flag. They'll write smart contracts which contain vulnerabilities, and then the rest of the auditors in Chainsecurity for 1 hour will try to find those vulnerabilities. We tend to also learn and relearn like some vulnerabilities we almost have forgotten about during this. There is a scoring, basically. The author of those smart contracts gets points if no one finds the bugs, and obviously the ones who find the bugs, if they are the only ones, get more point than if multiple people find it, and so on. And then there's always a winner who, in our case, gets a company-sponsored lunch or basically a dinner or something like that. But this is a great way to learn, because first you need to come up with your own ideas how to write smart contracts. You will actually make mistakes on this which you didn't intend, right? So the auditors will later find bugs in your smart contracts which you didn't put in there. You will be able to better reason about security afterwards. The auditors who check it, they also learn something, sometimes even new bugs you thought yourself up, and or novel ways in which old bugs could be expressed. And then you have that feedback from all the others, from what you wrote. And so I find after doing the capture the flags which are out there, there a shout out to the Paradigm guys. I think there is a new one coming up soon, hopefully. But yeah, the Paradigm CTF is probably the hardest one out there, the best one to learn from if you really want to kneel in. Then yeah, and then create your own CTF and have others play it. And this is a lot of effort, but hugely rewarding, and also gives back to the community, obviously, by providing more CTFs.
Definitely, for sure. I think like being able to participate in CTFs is something that's very well recommended. I mean, way back when we had Hacker Hangout with Sam CZ, and I know he talks a lot about CTFs. I know he designs a lot of CTFs on his
Yes.
I guess side time. But he does recommend them to a lot of the people that are just starting out in the space, or at least people trying to test out their skills. This is actually a good segue into the next point, because there's a few questions essentially about essentially getting involved with Chainsecurity. So, for example, so FF asks, and this kind of I'm gonna kind of group these together because they're both interrelated. So there's one question that's by FF and one by CKSCC. So essentially, the first one would be, could you explain your recruitment process? How many steps does it take? And do applicants have to submit like a CTF like exercise? That's kind of also been a little bit answered by you in terms of how people get involved. And then also the second part of it by CKK is, are you guys currently hiring researchers? Which I believe, yes, might be the answer, since you dropped the, come join us statement. And if you hire them, what are some key points you look for in experience? And then I guess what goes into some of the training that you guys do with some of the people that are new to Chainsecurity?
Yeah. Nice. So just the very last thing can answer the fastest, because what I explained before, how our journey is, this was the journey someone we hired would do after being hired. So this is how we train new joiners. And they are at that point new joiners, right? They are not applicants at that point. So we are open. We are looking for both researchers, for auditors with experience also in different fields. But to be honest, we often we don't poach or so, right? So what we like is to bring more people into the space, and a lot of people who join us actually have not a lot of security. They have security background, but not necessarily background in blockchains, right? They might not have any Solidity experience. How our selection process works is, I guess, kind of traditional, kind of not. We really want that people who apply with us know what they are getting into, because the life of an auditor in blockchain is a little bit different also from the life of like security people out of the Web2 space. We really read a lot of code and we really reason about code a lot, right? It's this white box approach which is dominant in our kind of work. So how we do that is where you need to apply with us with a CV and a motivation letter, and we do value a lot, because we are small and then our area is niche, that your application letter is something which is, or basically your motivation letter is something tailored towards us, right? Where you show that this is not one of 100 applications. But then you will get a challenge, which is a vulnerable smart contract, which you are asked to find the bugs in and send us a report. So we this is in Solidity, but we don't expect you to know Solidity. It is written in a way which, and the bugs are of a type which don't require any specific know-how about the EVMs, quirks, and so on. But obviously, if you have experience in that, you will be doing better at this, as any test you can train for it. We'll ask you about how much experience you have, and obviously also factor that in evaluating it. If you do well on this test of finding bugs, and are also good with explaining them, basically expressing yourself, which is also a very important part, then you will get into a technical interview. This technical interview will really focus on this test, basically about the things you found, things you missed, reason about it, and go perhaps a little bit beyond to also discuss what it is. So at this point, we still firmly focus on the kind of work we anyway do. At this point, you will also know if you enjoyed the challenge or not, because you will be doing that as an auditor a lot. If you pass those two steps, so doing the challenge and then the technical interview around the challenge, both are remote, then if possible, we'll invite you to our Zurich offices, but it's not needed. And we will then have 3 on-site interviews, 2 being technical, 1 being say more cultural, and 1 being more like explaining to you how we operate. It's not a real interview. It's more really a getting to know each other to figure out if the way we operate, which is we are not a normal firm, not a normal company in the sense of there is a boss who tells you what to do, right? We are very flat. We do have Chainsecurity is a little bit special in that regard. So we will check if you feel comfortable with this style, which honestly a lot of people do in the decentralized world nowadays anyway, but a lot of people who are used to top-down management might not feel comfortable with. Yeah, and then there's 2 technical interviews, one which is again a little bit more on the audit style of things, and another one which is one with our principal engineers, which is more high level, where we discuss security matters and how to handle them, and have some really challenging questions. This is one which you usually will leave with feeling like you didn't know a lot. Also, it is the one where we really try to figure out your limits. But yeah, those are the traditional interviews. Then it's very, very quick afterwards, right? The everyone who interviewed you weighs in if you should join the team, and we'll then give everyone else who is in Chainsecurity already the possibility to veto that decision for whatever reasons. And if no one does, then you will get an offer that the turnaround here depends mostly on you. We need, it depends on where we are. Sometimes there are conferences and so on, and then we aren't that quick. But otherwise, it's usually in a week. The whole process takes a week, perhaps 2 weeks, something like that.
That's not a bad process. 2 weeks. I mean, I've been in a few where it takes like a month to get it done. But that's also that's I hope that I mean that provides some really good insight for a lot of these for the community or a lot of the people that are listening in. Because I know this seems to be a fairly common question that comes across with some of our guests, especially ones that are working with auditing firms or have a group of white hats that they work with. Everybody's always trying to figure out, what's the best way to get involved with like a team like Chainsecurity. And I think a kind of a follow up here by I think you can say his or her name as Monakai Monik. They're asking that you were talking about entryways for technical people, but they want to know what about entry points for people that are non-technical. Because you did mention that after, for example, a bug is found, there's some communication with the clients, and they want to see if there's any roles that non-technical people can fill at a company like Chainsecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, also very good question, and thanks for that. I tend to focus on the technical part because it is something which is easier for me because it's where I come from and so on. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other jobs. So there it's a little bit harder for us to evaluate because it's so easy to evaluate technical things because things for us are often binary. It's true or false. In these spaces, it's harder. But we are very lean in that sense, I got to say. There are, in our team of 20, there are two who aren't technical. One is Emily, who is running basically doing all the sales. And there is May, who is doing all the administrative work. And then I am there as the only one who's also not doing audits all the time. Just to let you know, so we do we are very tech focused, to be honest, but we are also hitting limits currently and try to expand both in the tech and non-tech space. The biggest demand we have is in facilitating a great experience for the projects we work with. You can imagine that an audit is something which currently needs to be booked pretty far in advance. We are mostly fully booked for this year, and projects need to plan. That's very hard for projects, and delays are common. And then it's something which I call the great Tetris game starts, where you try to make it possible. One of our clients just was able to swap with another client for a slot, right? And then there's lots of communication going on there. So basically, you'll be in a position where you need to coordinate with a lot of projects, juggle a lot of balls to ensure that all of them have a great experience. Traditionally, it's something you would put into post sales, I guess. But it's really also something with PM. We do look for really excellence in any job we post. I mean, I guess a lot of people say that, but the people who work with us are really, really, really good at what they do, including the non-technical ones. So also there's obviously the huge advantage of being able to learn from those. We don't expect that everyone comes and is a genius, but we certainly hope that we can bring out that qualities in everyone through good training, through like exposure to people you can really learn from, both in and outside of the community. I mean, you had Sam ZZ here. We do work a lot with him, but also with great other people in the community to really push the boundaries. So, yeah, I would say it is less clear. I'd say in this case, we actually don't even have a job post publicly out where you can say, hey, I fit that role. It's exactly me. You would have to apply a little bit more into the blind and say, hey, a company like yours is might need my skills. So I think we hopefully are able to better describe this role I just pitched in brief in the future when we pass kind of this magical boundary of 20 people, and we will add non-technical people to the team too. I do think we will still. There will be a lot of challenge for those people because they will have to deal with, like, for one non-technical people, there will probably always be 10 technical people, and you need to be comfortable with talking those languages. And obviously, all of our clients are very technical usually too. You'll speak to the CTOs and the lead developers of the leading DeFi projects, and they are also, they are very good at what they do, and they do value a lot if they talk to people who are also really good at what they do, not only the technical but also in the organizational side of things. So we heavily select for those skills when we search for those people.
Nice. That's good to hear. Hopefully that answers your question, Monakai. Also, another follow up for Ezra. We want to know if, for example, you get hired on with Chainsecurity. Is it something where you can work remotely, or is it required for you to relocate to Zurich? I think you said it was. You can also be remote. Just want to clarify that.
We definitely we work. We have people working remotely with us. I'd say it's a perk to be able to relocate to Zurich if you want to. We have a nice office there. A lot of us are there, and obviously there are benefits to be able to whiteboard things out. But that is optional. As we work in pairs, you would have to be working compatibly with what is it, UTC +2 currently, so the Central European time, Zurich time. In our case, we define that as from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You should be available by default, right? So it's kind of don't take it too serious. We all enjoy freedom around when we work, but yeah. So this is, I think, the only real restriction. I would say being based in New Zealand is very tough, but anything which makes it possible to work with us in our time zone, even if your day would then start at 6 a.m., as long as it goes until 4 p.m. our time, then this should be fine. And obviously the same for late. So I think US East Coast is the one boundary which still works, and we had several people working from Far East, up to Singapore. That's getting close to when it starts to be harder. But yeah, I would say this is roughly the area of people we can work with remotely. But also we are really, really supportive and to a large degree set up to enable, if people want to move to Switzerland, which is one of the best places, I think, to live, to make that move, right? Say to support on visa, to go through all the troubles if you don't have a European citizenship, when otherwise that's super easy. But to support that journey, and it can also be something which is done after some time. So yeah, it's a perk, not a requirement for us.
No, definitely, that's for sure. I always joke around though. As much as I love my Australian and New Zealand peeps, you guys always mess up my time zones when I'm scheduling meetings. But I guess so. CKK has an interesting question. So he wants to know: do you guys have any I guess you as in Chainsecurity, do you guys have any standards or tips on how to get into big code bases? Big code bases. Like, is each researcher in your company unique to that specific code base, or are there standards you created that others follow? Also, additionally to their unique approaches.
Yeah. No, I think there isn't a secret, to be honest, to this one. We try to have that's basically how we tackle large code bases, and we do work really with large code bases a lot, is we first try to get a rough overview of the whole thing, like in a day or so. Each one individually who works on it, but also, and then afterwards we share a little bit what we have found out. Afterwards, the project itself will onboard us. I always tell them, like, hey, think of it like you have a new hire and you want to onboard them into your system. So we have a call with them. They'll do either a code walkthrough, or depending on how they are set up, they'll have architecture documents. They talk about the ideas, the goals. All of this is super, super helpful to form like a mental frame. Obviously, this is easy if you can compare it in that sense. Like, oh, okay, you are doing something which is roughly similar to what Compound is doing, but you add some features on top. Okay, then having that past experience of a comparable system makes it easier to realize what a new system is doing. But often we do, like, this space is amazing in experimenting and coming up with crazy new ideas. So we are exposed to that a lot, and then we do also have to think about something which we haven't seen before. But yeah, really, we try to have the team which thought about this just like a year more than we did, who just started, to explain it to us. We also obviously have always communication channels open with these teams to be able to ask questions, but it is then very important for us to form our own understanding. We then go ahead and write something which we are also kind of proud of. We write our own system overview. So if you go to chainsecurity.com and look at the website which needs some overhaul, but if you look into our audit reports, you will always find in the beginning, before the issues are there, system overview. Sometimes it's short because it's a system which is kind of well known, just adds a small quirk to, or sometimes it's a pretty elaborate system, and then we really say how we think it works. We send that also to the project and ask them if we got it or if there's something important missing. That also often leads to issues in itself, right? When they realize, oh, that's how it is from the code, but actually that's not always what we wanted to have. But yeah, mostly by trying to come up with that system overview, which is something which we do continuously, right? To be honest, often only at the very end of an audit, we also have the final version of how a system overview, what the system is really doing. But yeah, we really try to quickly get a good understanding of that, and then only afterwards dive into the details, because it's super easy to get lost in these code bases. And obviously we have a lot of experience with reading code, so you always see the same patterns repeating, and then you already know, oh, okay, they use that inheritance scheme, they use that authorization scheme, and so on, and it does help you to focus on the parts which are more novel.
Nice. Cool. I want to backtrack to a question that I accidentally skipped. This is by Immunify Waifu. So he couldn't join us, so he just sent out a question asynchronously. Want to know if you've received any Cairo-based projects, and if so, can you provide some information around it?
Yeah, some, not so many so far, mostly in the form of people like projects, customers of ours who we already work with, which onboard into Starknet and, for example, convert a token there, have bridge in some form into Cairo, and they use, or into Starknet and use Cairo. For so far, I would say not yet the crazy stuff, right? So we didn't audit a Uniswap on Starknet and or something like Aave, no flash loans and stuff like that. But mostly it's bridges and tokens so far, and the system around it. But there are several projects who plan that and basically have us audit Cairo. We also there really check what the standard libraries, which Stockware is providing, do. And there we also had some cases where basically the standard library would assume certain things which were really not something which was clear to the people who would use them. Like, yeah, you can imagine that once you don't really understand the library you are using, it's very easy to make mistakes. In Cairo, they try to abstract it away, but fundamentally, the language is different from what we are used to. So it's a proving language, right? And you deal in felds, so in their abstraction over fields for ZK proofs, and that forces you to think of a little bit different. Basically, that assignments aren't really assignments. Assignments are forcing the prover that only one, like only if A equals 1, then it makes sense. Then there is a proof or so, right? So this thinking of it this way, especially when you read the library more closely, allows you to reason about why things aren't as you would write them in traditional languages in Solidity. I think in this case, it was for makers onboarding, where the library, what was it? What did it do? It was allowing overflows in their word in certain cases. But yeah, that's really helpful to understand and a little bit debug what the Starkware libraries are doing. And if you really understand that part, you'll probably see how people who don't have the time to necessarily dig that deeply into those libraries use them in ways which aren't secure in all circumstances. But yeah, we do have this Cairo exposure, but I would say it's so far below 5% of everything we do. So it's still niche.
No, that's awesome. That's good to hear. I mean, it's good again. Like, I know you guys are expanding to different chains. You guys aren't, just solely on like mainnet, for example. But you guys even taking a look at that, I think is awesome. I think so. I guess another question. I guess this is in regards to kind of the relocation standpoint of things, but one question from Pangolin is what's essentially the living costs in Switzerland?
They are significant, but the salary is more than equal, more than enough to make it up, I'd say. But I also quickly wanted to give like another before we switch back to the hiring topic, something which just came to my mind and how you can get more exposure to this. Something we also like to take part in. So to be more on the white hat side of things. If you are able to connect in real life, ideally, or through some trusted way with other security researchers, this is not open to untrusted anon, then there is a great space run by the guys at Paradigm, and there are also Discord, the security channels, where we talk a lot more openly with people we do trust to try to prevent hacks. Yeah, I think some of the ones are in here too, who are regular guests there, and where we also share this ways how to do it, how to deal with this stuff. And so yeah, also for that, feel free to try to join these more, I'd say, the active white hat anti-hack community in Ethereum, because there obviously you go through fire, but you'll learn like nowhere else. And the only thing I think you need to become a little bit trusted that you aren't a black hat, because we do share hacks which people don't know about yet in there. and you will see ongoing hacks and try to prevent them. But yeah, so sorry, going back to your question, living costs in Zurich. As a student, I was a student here. Then obviously that's the lowest end. You can live here with, what is that, 1,500 USD equivalent, but that is considered half of what you need before you are below poverty officially in Switzerland. So normal living costs here are for sure above 3K per month, and starts to be median expectation around, I'd say, 5K a month. Then you're kind of living here comfortably. It always, of course, depends on, like family you need to support and so on. It's the usual thing. Education is for free. It's not like in the US and then some other systems where you need to pay a lot for sending your kids to school or educating yourself. We have some of the best universities here, and they are literally for free. The cost you have is with food and with and housing. It is less expensive than Silicon Valley, but not too much. And overall, it's one of the more expensive places to live. But again, even as a student, doing side jobs, and Switzerland has almost literally zero unemployment, you would earn $20 to $25 an hour, which is comfortably easy to support you living here. And obviously, we do have a severe shortage of talented tech engineers as all over the world. So, and then there are a lot of, even outside of crypto, even though there's some crypto here, the niche, but in general, that is a good place. Google has, I think, their biggest presence in Zurich outside. In Central, in Europe, one of the biggest presences they have with people developing stuff is in Zurich. But yeah, so I'd say that we do have a very open, we don't share it publicly, but internally it's very open what everyone earns inside Chainsecurity. And even if you start as an intern, just learning with us when you aren't yet on a level where you'd say like, hey, I know compilers really well, right? And you want to learn with us, you'll still get a salary, which is more than enough to support you living in Zurich. And obviously, if you need some money upfront to relocate, that is also something we are open to then discuss.
Nice. I guess let's switch gears back to kind of what I guess process for Chainsecurity. So Ezra asked one question, but I'm also going to follow it up with Mohammed's because I think it's kind of one and then the other. So Ezra asked, what tools do you guys specifically use? And then also a follow up by Mohammed is, what do you guys have any reports that are publicly released? I think maybe you individually, because he just wants to just generally go over to see what your style and approach is.
Yeah, I saw that ZK Sack was so kind to answer that question. So a lot of our reports are public, and they're all on chainsecurity.com /audits if you want to go directly there. But there isn't much on the website except links to our audits, to be honest. This also gives you a pretty good idea of the kind of thought process and things we are looking for when doing our work. While I focused on answering that, I actually forgot the first part of your question. Sorry for that.
Oh, that was what tools you guys specifically use.
The tools, yes. So yeah, very good question too. So we do use the also publicly available static analyzers for a baseline check, where it's due for a shout out for Slither from Trail of Bits is probably one of the the best ones out there. We do develop our own tools internally. They are more on the formal verification side of things, which more custom checks. We do have an extensive knowledge base where we detail how we use these hacks, but a lot is in our internal training and discussions, to be honest. So the tools are used to help where they can, but they can't help a lot. A lot of the projects we work with also did run those tools already. We will double check, but so far, although we try, we have some very interesting ideas, I think, on what kind of tools would really help, and are working internally to develop them, and probably we'll also open source them. We aren't there yet, but yeah. So tool-wise, I'd say there isn't something super secret. We so far didn't find a lot of value in the fuzzing side of things, mostly in the static and dynamic analysis. And what else is there interesting tool-wise? We do like Brownie a lot to best play with the smart contract systems at hand for its ease of use for forked mainnet testing. So that is there. We aren't developers, right? So like hard hat versus Foundry also is not for us that interesting because we don't write unit tests really just for POCs or so. We mostly need a good way to play with the system. There we do like Brownie, but other systems are out there for sure. The Tintin or Martin from Consensus from Dilly. He writes some amazing tools which we also use. We use VS Code mostly with the integrations for where he did most of the work is to have a nice auditor suite. There is what else? The guys from DDoP with contract library and their disassembler. They are fast for audits. Obviously, it's not an interesting, not needed because we do have the code. But when being more on the white hat hack side of things, then that is an invaluable tool. Yeah, but I guess that's mostly the tools we do use. Solidity compiler, as stupid as it sounds, gives you some nice insights with their warnings. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you shedding some light on that. Again, hopefully, a lot of this information that's being shared here gives some of our white hats in the community a leg up over the rest of the competition. So Mohammed was just asking for clarification earlier because you were talking about the different Discord communities. And you're talking about an anti-hack team. He wanted to know what that was being referred to. Was that being referred to a closed Discord community, or was that like an actual group?
It's it's both. I would say is yes. The answer to it's part of Paradigm's Discord, and I think the Paradigm Discord is open, but the security channels in it aren't. So there are security channels where we discuss these things, and there you need an invite, and you will get it to others in the security space. For those who aren't already part of ETH security Telegram group, that is probably the most important Telegram group for security researchers in the Ethereum ecosystem I know of. Obviously, there's less alpha in there, but there is everything important will get discussed in there around security. And it does have its fair share of, do you know someone from that project, which always gets basically that project's people get a near heart attack if they are being asked in there, but usually it's fine still. But yeah. So this is There you can also, I think a lot of people who are in here are already in there. Just ask someone you know in the space. They might be able to invite you to that group, which also has a Discord, to be honest, from Security.
Nice. I had one.
You are probably in there, right? You can share the link.
Yeah, I think some of these guys are in there. I think.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a secret group.
Yeah.
This is like 1,000+ people in there.
Yeah, it's a fairly large group. I think going back to so as I asked another question that kind of goes back to kind of conflict of interest, or not really conflict of interest, but trying to see the pros and cons of working under a firm versus being your own independent bug hunter. I kind of want to see your thoughts around that.
Yeah, it's a good question too. I gotta say we are we are 20 people, so I wouldn't say we are a big firm, but it is obviously way bigger than being one. It has, I think, a lot of advantages by being able to plug into that know-how and skill set around what the others are doing. To give you an example of what we always do with an audit is we have that audit, but then towards the end of it, there's something we call an audit defense. Rough idea is mirrored towards what in research happens with PhD theses and master theses and so on, where you in the end give a presentation about what you did and others will ask you questions. And this is less really an exam, just like in research, it's actually less an exam. It's mostly something where they want to learn more. They want to ask you, they want to know the answers to those questions. And so we do the same when you did an audit. You will present your findings and novel ideas you had, things, caveats, and so on to other auditors. And obviously the others do learn a lot from those experiences. You do learn a lot. Your audit will get a lot better by being exposed to a lot of challenging questions, things you basically during that session will write down and say, oh yeah, we'll actually check for those corner case too. We'll think about it from that angle which you brought up here, and oh wow, if that project is used with that other project which some of the colleagues have audited, then you might be again vulnerable. So let's check if that attack happens and so on. So the superpower of just a lot more hands-on know-how from people who have really studied different projects out there. You have no chance to do that on your own because he's just like 24 hours in a day and just one person. The advantages, I'd say, are that you are, it's easier for you to say no to things perhaps, but with us, it's actually also pretty easy. You'll probably have a hard time to get asked for an audit of a larger, interesting system on your own, just because it's hard for you to complete that work in due time. And then you will be a lot too exposed to more interesting projects when working with a firm. I gotta say, also in our case, it is very flat, right? So if you join us, then by default, we expect you to, after roughly a year of working with us, to start your journey towards become an equal, full owner of Chainsecurity. And after another 4 years, the usual 4-year vesting, I'd say, you will have the same leverage or the same amount of shares technically, but which amounts to the same amount of profit share, the same amount of decision power than anyone else who joined before you and already finished that journey. So just like you'll be on equal level in that sense as I am today, and lots of us are already on that level. So it's a pretty flat organization, and obviously that does also mean there is a lot of decision power you keep on what to do. But obviously, there's also you'll be part of a team, so you can really let down people by not not being there where you should. You can say the biggest drawback is we are booked out like 9 months in advance. What this does on a personal level means you need to book your vacation 9 months in advance, right? So in that sense, and this is very hard, and that's very unusual for also for myself, because we are usually pretty free and replaceable, if you want to think of it this way, and say like, hey, today I do that, right? So that's harder.
No, I thought that's funny because yeah, I mean, I spoke with a few auditing firms as well, and they're booked out similar time frame, 6, 9, even 12 months in advance. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. I had one
The
question.
reason is that we didn't open next year yet, right? So you can't book us for next year.
Exactly. Like mostly for most of 2022, I would say a majority, unless you have some sort of inside or friend connection. Most of you guys are booked out for the rest of the year pretty much, without even opening up your 2023 calendars yet, which is surprising. Surprising, but not, but also expected with, especially with the growth of the space, and also the lack of technical people in the space as well. There's always a need for more people that can read, write, and kind of run through smart contracts, and there always seems to be a need there. Cool. I think also one on a little bit more of a, I guess, kind of a personal note. So Ezra was also asking, for you guys personally, how worried about you? How worried are you guys about your own computers being hacked by black hat hackers? Essentially, trying to get to the vulnerabilities that you guys found before they're actually fixed. Do you guys take any extra measures to protect your systems?
Yeah, we do take care of this. I'd say it is still rather tradition in that sense. I mean, a lot of us come from a strong security background, but I'm far from saying like that makes us invulnerable from getting phished from time to time and so on, right? We are exposed to the same things. I gotta say, our attack surface is a little bit smaller just because we tend not to deal with like private key material. Obviously, this is always under the control of the projects. We tend to, yes, see code before it's being deployed. We tend to know about bugs before they are there, before it's public and so on, and perhaps when it's still vulnerable. But it is actually not very frequent that we have production systems vulnerable out there. So most of the code we audit isn't live yet, right? Because people do an audit to fix the bugs, and not, it's very hard if it's already deployed. So we do take special care in these sensitive settings where there is severe loss possible on chain. But for the rest, it's, I would say, traditional DevSecOps to secure your system with like the usual, I'd say, like 2FA everywhere, separations, like using always patched, updated systems. A lot of us run on Linux. A lot of us run on Mac. A few of us run on Windows. So we are pretty all over the place, and it really is the freedom of the people to choose where they think they are best at. And then a lot of education around what needs to be done to keep your system secure. Obviously, things are encrypted and so on. But yeah, I'd say to some degree we aren't the most prime targets, because if you hack Chainsecurity, and what you know is the projects we work with, okay, most of these audits are anyway public. You know it a little bit earlier, but actually it's also often public what we currently are working on. You will see code. Perhaps the biggest exposure is if you want to copy what Maker is about to develop in your Maker clone before Maker releases it. We might have that code before anyone else. But that's about it, right? So there isn't too crazy. Yeah, in that sense, we are a little bit lucky. We do not sleep tight because of the possibilities of having missed bugs in audits and having to think about, hey, this new system we audited like half a year ago, but now we found a new type of attack. Is that possible in that system where we didn't know that this type of attack half a year ago? But we do sleep well regarding like our own IT security, also because exposure isn't as life or death style. Like if you get a hack into a smart contract system, which secures whatever 10 billion in Maker's case.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, like I know we're coming. Well, actually, I'm say coming up. We're already past the allotted time. So I want to not. I want to be respectful of your time as well. I know we're a little bit over, so apologies for that. But I appreciate you, Matthias, for hopping on. Just wanted to see if there's the best way to reach you for anybody else that has any additional questions, either regards to chain security, getting involved and so on and so forth. Would Discord essentially be the best way to go, or do you prefer another medium?
Yeah, there's actually many ways to reach me, to be honest. Discord is one. It's harder. Honestly, Discord is probably the worst to some degree, just because I am in many channels and I do this, and because of the spam you get, I don't allow in most systems that people DM me out of a server. So there's Twitter. I am on many systems. I'm just my first and last name, which is Matthias Egli. You'll find it also on the Chainsecurity website, right? So it's pretty obvious. I'm that on Telegram. I'm that on Twitter. I'm that on GitHub and wherever. So you can reach me all there directly. I'd say, yeah, Telegram and Twitter are fast channels. LinkedIn and email is very fast too, to be honest, which is just first last name at chainsecurity.com. But if you want to reach out to Chainsecurity, actually the best way depends on what you want, right? Is like jobs at Chainsecurity for any questions you have regarding employment. If you want to talk about like work stuff, it's mostly contact at Chainsecurity, but yeah, I mean that's mostly for the people who want to hire us. And otherwise, there's also info at Chainsecurity just for general questions. Yeah, I think those, but yeah, or just hit us up on Twitter. Where there's chain_security. Sadly, someone else is Chainsecurity without the underscore. But yeah, so these are all great places, and a lot of us are active in all over the place, right? Where you can find us too. Don't
No,
hesitate. Just ping us directly. We are very open and very basically we really like to discuss technical matters with people.
No, that's awesome. That's good to hear. So you guys heard it here first. If you guys want to send Matthias an email to follow up any questions, maybe Discord might not be the best. Maybe Telegram and Twitter might be a little bit better. Feel free to follow up with them. Matthias, if you want to just throw a few of your some of your contact information in the chat, and then these guys can pick it up from there. But again, like I said, appreciate you hopping on for this. I know we're a little bit over, so again, I apologize for that. I want to be respectful of your time. I know some of these things can get a little bit, can run over time just because of the allotment of questions that are coming through. So thank you again for sharing some of your insights in terms of processes in chain security. Insight into some of the hiring processes, what to expect there, some of the tools and processes that you guys use moving forward. So thanks so much. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great discussing these things. Don't be shy, ask any questions. So really looking forward. And also, yeah, great work being done here. And we are always amazed by the kind of things which are being found from the Immunify audience, from the hackers all over the place who choose this way to release stuff and not. And I know it's sometimes like an uphill battle. It can be annoying if you are in a setting where the project might not be as responsive as you want, doesn't understand what's going on. So we do really deeply appreciate this type of work there. It's really complementary to what we do. So even if you don't want or can join us or whatever, like keep doing this. The bug bounty report work is really, really important and keeps this space secure. So yeah, keep it up. Thanks.
Oh, thanks so much. So cool. And just to wrap this up, for everybody that's here, give a big thank you to Matthias, for stopping by. Also, if you guys have already done so, I'm gonna repeat myself because I always do so, because I want you guys to stay updated in terms of what's happening, especially with new bug bounties that are being released. Probably the most up-to-date way would be Twitter, Telegram, and also our Discord in terms of the new bug bounty channel. So that's the best way to get the most up-to-date information. And do sign up for our email list as well. That's at the bottom of our immunify.com homepage. And you essentially will get notifications there as well for new bug bounties that are released. So that about wraps it up for today. Thank you again for everybody that stopped by. Thanks for all the awesome questions that you guys always bring. It's always a pleasure to moderate these for you and have conversations with you guys. And again, thank you to Matthias. Thanks for coming out. So we'll see you in the next one. Mohammed, let's see who I can bring in on the next one. Hopefully we get someone just as cool as well. So thank you guys so much, and cool. I guess we'll wrap this up for now, and see you guys in the next one. And like I said, keep an eye in terms of the announcements, and I'll let you know when the next Hacker Hangout's going to be. All right, cheers, guys.